This morning on Capitol Hill, top administration officials are set to brief the full House and Senate on Venezuela. It comes as lawmakers from both parties are raising questions about what comes next here after the capture of Venezuela's former leader and President Trump's repeated vow to run the South American country. Ahead of today's briefing, the president took to social media to announce that Venezuela will start turning over some of its oil production to the United States. According to the president, Venezuela will provide 30 to 50 million barrels of oil to the U.S. Trump says it'll be sold at market price and the proceeds will be controlled by himself to, quote, benefit the people of both countries. The transaction could be worth up to nearly $3 billion at current market prices. It comes as multiple media outlets report the president is set to meet with major U.S. oil companies at the White House on Friday. The president, meanwhile, continued to tout the success of the Maduro raid during remarks yesterday to House Republicans.
You know, people are saying it goes down with one of the most incredible. It was so complex, 152 airplanes, many. Talk about boots on the ground. We had a lot of boots on the ground. But it was amazing. And think of it, nobody was killed. And on the other side, a lot of people were killed. Unfortunately, I say that, soldiers. Cubans, mostly Cubans, but many killed. They've been after this guy for years and years and years. And, you know, he's a violent guy. He gets up there and he tries to imitate my dance a little bit. But he's a violent guy. And he's killed millions of people.
Okay, so levity mixed with foreign policy. We talk a lot about the ripple effects of Venezuela, but there's this key piece of it. The White House saying President Trump is discussing a range of options to acquire Greenland. In a statement yesterday, White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt wrote this in part. President Trump has made it well known that acquiring Greenland is a national security priority of the United States. Utilizing the U.S. military is always an option at the commander-in-chief's disposal. But for this, against an ally? Secretary of State Marco Rubio apparently told lawmakers on Monday that recent threats toward Greenland do not signal an imminent invasion. That's new reporting, according to the Wall Street Journal. One of those reporters who broke that story joins us in just a moment. But Rubio's comments came during a closed-door briefing with the Secretary of State explaining that the Trump administration's goal is actually to buy the island from Denmark. The paper reported that Rubio's remarks were in response to Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, who asked if the administration was planning to use military force in other places, including Mexico or Greenland. Rubio played down that idea that the U.S. could seize Greenland by force, according to the people familiar with the briefing. The Journal also notes the U.S. and European officials say they've seen no signs of the White House preparing a military invasion of Greenland. Meanwhile, European leaders yesterday showed support for Greenland, releasing a joint statement saying that the island belongs to its people and stressing that security in the Arctic must be achieved collectively with NATO allies, including the United States. It comes after Denmark's prime minister on Monday warned that an American takeover of Greenland would amount to the end of NATO. Want to bring in one of the reporters on that story, Alex Ward. He covers national security for the Wall Street Journal. Alex, I thought this was a really big next step because it felt like the conversation was moving on the Hill and in expert circles to what might come next. Is it Cuba? Is it Mexico? Is it Greenland? And what domino might fall next and how? So what is significant about the way the Secretary of State kind of knocked down the idea that, oh, no, we don't want Greenland by military force. We just want to buy it. Does that make it better? I mean, you're still trying to take over a sovereign nation.
Well, the U.S. does have a history of buying territory,
yes.
right? Louisiana Purchase, Alaska, even the Virgin Islands from Denmark.
Certainly.
So it can be done. Of course, Denmark and Greenland have so far said, we're not for sale, we're not into this. And so the Trump strategy now seems to be they're going to coerce Denmark and coerce allies into eventually sort of being willing to offer Greenland up for sale. The threats of invasion, or at least the threats of some sort of military action, or more specifically, the unwillingness to remove that option from the table is part of that pressure campaign. And so what Rubio's really telling lawmakers is this is a diplomatic play. We've got a big stick, we're wielding it, and we're trying to make it so Denmark at some point calls uncle and goes, fine, you can have Greenland, here are our terms of sale, which as of this point, there's just zero movement on that front.
But then you look at the way that European allies and Denmark itself are reacting, and it's clear that they're not just saying, no, we're not for sale. They're saying that if this kind of coercion continues and it ratchets itself up, that this would be the end of NATO. I mean, like, these are massive stakes now if they weren't already high enough.
No question. I mean, you've got the U.S., the leader of NATO, at least not ruling out a military action to take territory from a NATO ally.
Yeah.
That is extraordinary.
Stunning.
And it would be the end of NATO. If the whole point of NATO was to stop an invasion from Russia. If it comes from inside the house, that is the end of the alliance. So the fact that, again, that the Trump administration is not removing that option from the table shows that they're willing to risk the unity of NATO in order for this play to own Greenland. Now, you'll talk to certain experts and they'll say, look, there makes actually a lot of sense in many ways for the U.S. to have control of Greenland. Like if Denmark and Greenland wanted to do that, then fine. But that said, Trump's stated goals for wanting Greenland are to have Arctic security, to have mining rights, and maybe more U.S. presence in that region. Well, you don't need to buy Greenland to do that, those last two, right? You can get Denmark's been open about mining rights, so is Greenland. They've also more than been welcoming of U.S. troops there. They were willing to open more bases. And they've
said they want to ramp up the infrastructure that already exists there, too.
Right. So the thing is, Trump is kind of choosing the path of most resistance in order to get these things that he says he wants, unless the goal is, as some people suspect, a sort of legacy building project, that he will be able to put his name in the history books as someone who expanded the territory of the United States.
Is it Trumpland at the end of the day, right? That is, I think, one of the key questions. And so as we're watching this continue to unfold, you've got key members of the administration, including Marco Rubio, going back to Capitol Hill today, not just briefing the Gang of Eight and some select lawmakers, but broadening it out to brief all senators, all House members. I know from my conversations on the Hill yesterday and over the weekend, they are clamoring for that briefing. But what do you imagine the questions are that these members still have?
Well, I think it will be one, how does the actual, investing in Venezuelan oil, how does that work? I mean, you've got a lot of company executives will be coming Friday to talk to Trump about it. They'll want to know how in the world do they actually benefit from this? I mean, talk about a 10-year project, multi-billion dollars, a devastating security situation. Yeah. I mean, if you're a company, you're going to send a bunch of people there. And then on Greenland, they're going to be asking, do you have any sense whatsoever that the Danes want to sell? And if no, why is this the right tactical play, and is there a risk of general European allied NATO unity that you guys are putting at risk here? And at the end of the day, what probably Secretary of State Rubio will say, it's the president's call. We all serve at the pleasure of the president. But if you, especially Democrats, are worried about invasions of other countries, Mexico, Colombia, elsewhere, that's not on the cards right now. The Venezuela play was a targeted mission.
I think the other thing that it feels clear to me is that we're at a point of, it was already tense between Congress and the White House, but the tension has been stretched even thinner because of the ongoing missions in Venezuela, whether it's the boat strikes, which is how we ended the year, concern over that, what the legal underpinning was. Now you obviously come into this year with a further escalation of what the military did in taking Maduro out of Caracas, bringing him to justice here in the U.S. I've had multiple members say to me, yeah, we feel the administration has lied to us. And now you've got members also coming out and giving broad strokes of policy discussions from classified briefings. I mean, what does this portend for where the administration and Congress go? Because there is some kind of a trust factor that was always relied upon between these two entities. What happens next here? If members feel the administration is lying to them and Democrats have no recourse for that, like, where does this go?
It's a fair question. I mean, with Republicans being unwilling to do anything about, exercising their power for the fact that that the administration has not been truthful with Congress about their intentions. I mean, for months, they said about Venezuela, this is, all about drug boats and whatnot. And now they still say this is a law enforcement function. Well, as far as I know, the military assets are still off the coast of Venezuela. So
yes.
It's not, clear that the law enforcement function has ended, let's say.
Yeah.
And so if you're in Congress, you have no reason really to trust the administration on this point, and there's been a lot of anger about this. The question then becomes, does the administration kind of stop engaging Congress, or sense that, look, every time we go to the Hill, also for classified briefings, this stuff leaks to the Wall Street Journal or elsewhere.
Yeah.
So why should we engage you further? And also, if that trust is to be broken, why would Congress even invite them? So I guess if you are Democrats, you're hoping, of course, for wins in the midterms.
Yeah.
And one could imagine a decent amount of investigations into the Venezuela play and the Greenland play and a lot of aspects of Trump's foreign policy that currently the Republican-led Congress is not doing.
Yeah, and even Trump yesterday brought in the politics of the midterms and the way that it might mean his next impeachment. I mean, that is very much percolating in the background. Every single controversy in Democrats' mind is something that they can circle back to and potentially investigate should they get gavel power back. Should they is, of course, a tall order, because with redistricting and then, of course, the midterms still months away, so much can still happen. But this tees us up, I think, perfectly to have at least a better understanding of where this conversation might be going. We're going to hear much more about this on Capitol Hill today. National security reporter for the Wall Street Journal, Alex Ward, thank you for coming on.
Thanks.
You know, Alex just mentioned Cuba. It's one of the countries in this conversation about where the U.S. might turn its attention next. But Cuba is experiencing its worst economic crisis since the 1959 revolution, and comes just as the key supply of oil it relies upon is now in jeopardy. For more than a quarter century, the island nation has depended heavily on Venezuela for subsidized oil. Now fears the dire economic conditions in Cuba, which include skyrocketing inflation, daily rolling blackouts, food shortages, and gas rationing, could get even worse as the U.S. takes control of Venezuela's state oil industry. As the New York Times notes, a typical monthly pension in Cuba isn't enough to buy a carton of 30 eggs. The crisis has even fueled a mass exodus of residents. Nearly 3 million Cubans have left the island since 2020, shrinking the real population to just over 8 million. On Sunday, President Donald Trump suggested Cuba's government is going down for the count and predicted the government will collapse without U.S. military action. Meanwhile, Russia has dispatched ships to escort an oil tanker that the United States Coast Guard has been pursuing for weeks. The tanker, formerly known as the Bella 1, was stopped by the U.S. on December 21st. The U.S. presented a seizure warrant as the ship lacked a valid national flag. But the tanker refused boarding and instead fled into the Atlantic. The crew then painted a Russian flag on the hull and renamed the ship. Russia then added to its national vessel registry and issued a diplomatic request for the U.S. to stand down. The tanker is part of the Shadow Fleet under sanctions for moving oil for Russia, Iran, and Venezuela. It's currently traveling northeast between Iceland and Britain, possibly toward Russia. So several threads that we are keeping track of here as we look at the action that the administration took over the weekend and what it might mean on a more geopolitical, larger level.